This is me on board my very first flight, which was a British Airways Boeing 747-400 from London Heathrow to Washington Dulles. I don't remember any of this trip as I was barely even a year old, but this was also a golden age missed by many. British Airways now operate out of Terminal 5 at London Heathrow, which opened in 2008. However, before this they operated out of Terminal 4 for most long-haul flights and the now demolished Terminal 1 for short-haul flights. In 1997, British Airways rebranded from their Landor colour scheme to the modern Chatham Dockyard colour scheme, which is still used today. However, from 1997 to 2001, they launched Project Utopia, which was a rebranding exercise to deassociate British Airways with its imperialistic influences of the past. To do this, they painted the tails of their aircraft in unique colour schemes that represented different parts of the world. And as you may know, over the last couple of years, I've been collecting quite a few of these different liveries. And so with the release of the Aircraft Model Store's new 1:400 layout, I figured this would be the perfect time to do this one-off airport update special, while also taking a look at this new matte layout. The Aircraft Model Store is where I buy all of my model aircraft, and you can find the link to their website in the description of all of my videos, including this one. Along with today's update, I will also be doing an unboxing and review of their new matte, and I want to remind you that if you live in the UK or the EU, you can pick this matte up from the AMS website directly. However, if you live in the US, postage can be quite expensive, so you can purchase this matte from Amazon as well. The link to everything will be in the description, so if you are in the US, you're interested in this matte, but you don't want to pay the postage, go ahead and click the Amazon link in the description. But again, if you are from the UK or the EU, you can go directly to AMS and purchase it from there. Okay, so as you can see, the box here is pretty big. I can't really fit it all into the frame, so this is going to be pretty interesting, the way in which I unbox this. But yeah, I guess somehow I'm going to go ahead and open this. Okay, and inside here we have the very conveniently sort of folded away mat, and here we have the actual packaging inside the box there. As you can see, the box is really nicely designed, and we have an overview of what the actual mat looks like, and we can see this is titled the Regional Airport Mat. Of course, I'm taking a few liberties on that regional statement by doing an update of London Heathrow Terminal 4, but there we go. We've got some plastic packaging over the actual box, so we're just going to go ahead and open this up, and lifting off the top of the box here, we can see the mat itself. And so here we have the mat. I'm very surprised at how heavy this actually is. It's very nicely done with the quality. It's sort of like Monopoly board quality, which isn't a bad thing at all. It's really thick sort of card, which is really nice. And we can go ahead and open up the mat like this. And so here, all unfolded out, we can see the mat. It's really nicely done. And although this is labeled a regional layout, if we take a 747 here, for example, we can see that over here, a 747 fits into one of these gates very nicely. So I would say this is more like a smaller international airport, and we've got some smaller gates here for some narrow bodies. But even, I would say, 1-200 aircraft, I would say they also fit, because we can take sort of like an A320 here, and we can put that into one of these gates, and it fits quite nicely. You could then almost maybe get some smaller aircraft and add them into these gates. You know, just modify as you please, essentially. You'll have to excuse the sun here, so you can't really see the markings that well, but we do have a runway down here, which is good. And we do have some areas here that if you wanted to, you could add some like modeling grass that I've got here on my layout underneath the board. You could probably add some here just to make it that little bit more realistic. But overall, I think this mat is a really nice layout, and for the price, I think it's really well done. And so now I'm gonna sort of set this up as Heathrow Terminal 4, and we can get on with this update. And so starting off here, I think one thing we all miss from this era is of course the Concorde. The Concorde is the only aircraft in the BA fleet that was never painted into the Project Utopia color scheme, so this went straight from the Landor color scheme to the Chatham Dockyard color scheme. And so this British Airways Concorde is going to be heading out to one of the only routes that ever turned a profit for BA, and that is the London Heathrow to New York JFK route. They would fly this flight 2 times a day, 7 days a week on the Concorde, 1 morning and 1 evening flight. Next up here we have another British Airways Concorde. This one is going to be heading out to Barbados. British Airways flew the Barbados route once a week, and one of the BA Concordes remains in Barbados to this day as a museum piece. And then moving on to the long line of British Airways Boeing 747-400s. Here we have the first 747. This one is painted into the Scottish tartan livery, and this one is going to be heading out to Nagoya in Japan. BA would fly this route 3 times a week, and this is a route that is no longer served by BA, which is pretty disappointing, but there we go. This aircraft is going to be heading out to Nagoya. Next up here we have this British Asia Airways Boeing 747-400. Now, British Asia Airways were a subsidiary to the main British Airways brand, and a lot of airlines used to do this. Japan Airlines, KLM, Qantas, Air France, they all used to do this, and this is a technique to allow them to fly to Taiwan. So China, the People's Republic of China, implemented a law or a rule, I don't really know what you call it, where a national airline, if they are to fly into, say, Beijing, for example, they are not allowed to fly to Taiwan. So a lot of airlines, like British Airways, would start a subsidiary, British Asia Airways, for example, that would act as a separate airline, and this airline would then fly to Taipei in Taiwan. They wouldn't do this directly, so British Airways used to stop in Hong Kong. So this aircraft is going to be heading out to Hong Kong, followed by Taipei, and then fly back on that same route. As well, flying to Hong Kong, this will be flying into Kai Tak Airport, as BA stopped flying into Kai Tak in 1998, when they started flying to the newer Hong Kong airport instead. Next up here we have another British Airways 747-400. This one is painted into the Nalanji Dreaming colour scheme. This is one of the Australian colour schemes, but this aircraft is going to be heading out to Los Angeles in California. This route would be operated 3 times a day, so similar to New York JFK, a very, very popular route. And as I say, that's 3 daily on a 747. Next up we have another British Airways 747-400. This one is painted into the Delta Blue Daybreak colour scheme, and this aircraft is going to be heading out to Mumbai in India. This is a daily route. And then next up we have another British Airways 747-400. This one is painted into the Woonala Dreaming livery, which is another Australian livery, and this aircraft is going to be heading out to Vancouver in Canada, which is another daily route. Next up here we have, of course, another 747-400. This one is in the Rendezvous livery, which represents Hong Kong, and this aircraft is going to be heading down to Australia. Now today, British Airways only have 1 flight down to Australia, and that is to Sydney through, I believe, Singapore. However, back in the day, British Airways used to operate to other Australian cities. So this one is going to be heading out to Perth via Singapore, and it's not like this was an infrequent route as well. This was a daily route. In a lot of ways, I feel like British Airways have gone downhill in some of the international destinations that they serve. But yeah, this one is going to be heading out to Perth via Singapore. And then last for the 747s, we have the last 747-400 in the South African colour scheme, and very fittingly, this aircraft is going to be heading out to Johannesburg in South Africa. The Johannesburg route operated 8 times daily, so that of course is daily except for 1 day of the week, which I'm not sure which day, but 1 day of the week they would operate 2 flights down to Johannesburg instead of 1. And then last here for the wide bodies, we have this British Airways Boeing 777-200ER, and this aircraft would be brand spanking new. This one is in the Chelsea Rose colour scheme, and British Airways first got the 777-200 as in the non-ER variant in 1995, so 2 years prior to this date. However, in 1997 they got their first 777-200ER, and British Airways were actually the launch customer of the 200ER back in 1997. So this aircraft would be brand new, and this one is going to be heading out to Montreal, which of course is a daily route. Next up here, moving on to some narrow bodies. Now, while British Airways mainly operated their narrow bodies from Terminal 1, I decided to add some 75s and some 73s into this update just to make it interesting. And so here we have the 757-200, which British Airways do not operate anymore. Again, similar to the 777-200ER, British Airways were actually the launch customer of the 757-200 all the way back in 1983, and they retired their last 757-200 in 2010. But this one here is painted into the blue pool color scheme, and this one is going to be heading out to Oslo in Norway. Then next up here we have another 757-200. This one is painted into the Scottish tartan livery, and this one is going to be heading out to Glasgow in Scotland. Next up here we have the 757-200 in the Chelsea rose color scheme, and this one is going to be heading out to Athens in Greece. We then here have the very old at this point 737-200. British Airways started operating the -200 variant of the 737 back in 1977. They retired these -200s back in 2001. However, they operated, I believe it was the -400 all the way up to 2015, I believe. And then, of course, British Airways never went on to order any of the NGs, so the -700, 800, or 900. They never operated any of them. And then, of course, at the moment, they don't have any orders for the MAX generation either. But this 737-200 is going to be operating a very interesting route that British Airways used to do, and that is to Casablanca via Gibraltar. And then last here for British Airways, we have another 737-200. This one is going to be heading out to Jersey in the Channel Islands. And last but not least, finishing off the updates, here we have this Gulf Air L1011. Now, Gulf Air operated their L1011s from 1976 to 1998, and I understand that during 1997, which is the year that British Airways swapped from the Landor livery to the Project Utopia colour scheme, I appreciate that a lot of the aircraft British Airways would operate in 1997 would have still been painted into the Landor colour scheme. But I decided to set this specifically in 1997 because I really wanted to include this aircraft, which retired in 1998. So this update isn't entirely accurate, but it's essentially the late 90s, early 2000s, just so I could include this aircraft, which I love. So yeah, this is the Gulf Air L1011, and this is going to be heading out to Bahrain. But apart from that, that does conclude today's update of London Heathrow Terminal 4. And so with that, I want to thank you very much for watching. Again, you can pick up one of these mats from the Aircraft Model Store. If you are, of course, in the US, you can pick it up from Amazon. Both links will be in the description, so if you live in the UK or the EU, you can go direct to the Aircraft Model Store website. Again, if you live in the US, it's better to go with Amazon. But yeah, apart from that, again, I want to thank you very much for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.